Hey, this is Michael Matry. I'm an inspirational speaker, poet.
Hey, what's up? I'm Jason. I'm a music artist. I also am an emergency manager and help keep campuses safe.
My name is Vladimir. I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts. I am a barber, professional barber. You can find me on IG at DeRay Styles.
Welcome. This is Michael Matry, and you are watching the Alert and Calm podcast. I am excited. This is our inaugural episode, and we are going to jump right into it. This is a podcast designed for men, for spiritual development, mental health awareness, and most of all, helping men find their sense of purpose all around the globe, across the internet, social media, whatever you want to call it. I got some of my best men with me here today. Vladimir DeRay, Jason Ferg.
Yes.
Welcome, fellas.
Peace.
Thank you.
Man, I'm excited to get into this, and by the time you guys are watching this podcast, this is going to be one of the first podcasts of the new year, so we're going to jump right into it. What does it take to get grounded in 2025? What will that take, fellas?
I mean, I would start off with eliminating distractions. Really having a plan, not too much, but just very, very the top 3 priorities, and how can you stick to it? How can you discipline yourself around it? And how can you eliminate any possible distractions that will get in the way of you focusing on those top 3 priorities? So, I mean, I kind of started my my list as you know, in 2020, before 2024 came around. I was like, man, I gotta really get myself in a place of financial stability. It's not about finance for me. Yeah, financial freedom sounds great, but it's just like having that ability to just be like, man, you know, like I want to go here, I want to go there, I want to get this, or I want to provide this, or I want to help someone who really needs help. Just kind of getting a little unstuck, not having to be worried about work or anything like that, and you know, maybe taking a day off or 3 days off, a little mental stability there. So, you know, I definitely have my list, but I would say, to answer your question, it is definitely about eliminating distractions. You know, we get distracted every single day, and I know that can trickle down to so many other topics, but yeah, eliminating distractions.
Yeah, I would jump in and say it's about peace. And when I think about peace, there are so many facets of what that could represent or what that could encompass, but I think about life being in alignment, and it starts with understanding, like, what is one's purpose? So in order to be grounded, you have to understand your purpose, and when you understand your purpose, you seek peace within that, and with that comes alignment. So I think it does include your finances, your health, your well-being, your relationships, your situation, like even your physical space. Once you start to map out a pathway to having peace in those areas, I think that's where you can really find yourself grounded. And then when you get there, you can sense when something is pulling you out of that alignment, and you can say, nah, I know what it took to get me to this place. So this feels like it's going to move me outside of that space, and I'd rather not do that. So now you can maintain that sense of being grounded by keeping your sensors up and detecting when something is drawing you away from that.
The distractions.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. I think I'm an October baby, so I look at it as my personal new year before the new year. Getting the ball rolling before we start doing the festivities. Somebody told me one time that winter is a time to reap the harvest. It's not a time to start it, right? And so sometimes in New Year's is the dead middle of winter, and that's the time where we're trying to start things. And that's the toughest time to start something. That's the time where you're supposed to be collecting on all the good work that you put into in the fall and in the summer and all that stuff. But you guys mentioned something that's really important. You talked about things that will get you off of that path, right? And so I tend to think about impulses, right? Impulses that, you know, are generated by you, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that kind of knock you off your path. And there's a temptation there when it comes to impulses. We usually don't just have impulses for the sake of having impulses. We usually have impulses because we were tempted by something, and we're doing some impulse buy or impulse movement that knocks us off of our path that we originally had set for us? What do you think are some of the things that we could do to prevent us from impulses? And impulses could be anything. It could be just the impulse to start scrolling when you're supposed to be doing something else. Or it could be an impulse to buy something that kind of knocks you off of your financial regimen.
Yeah.
So what are some of the impulses that you guys have been knocked around with in the past, and what's the plan to get those grounded in 2025?
I know for me, man, I when I went into the new year, I was 2024, I was like in the zone. And I think one of the biggest impulses, right, I would say would be and temptations, but more so a need, like was my car. My car was like, man, you got a choice. You fix me, or you just give me to somebody else, please. Like, so I had to make a choice, and with me finding that financial stability, I had to say to myself, like, I can't buy a new car right now. It's not the thing for me to go pick up a bill, right? So I had to fix my car. But once you start fixing your car and it starts riding better and starts feeling better, now you want to make it look better. So you start to do things that kind of distract you from the purpose of what you're trying to do, which is just get the car to ride and get you to work so you can get back on track. But you start adding some other things. And this year I kind of had a little battle, because we always had that little, oh, my birthday's here. I want to get this. I want to add, I have an older vehicle, so I wanted to add Apple CarPlay to it. And I did some research and found out I could put Apple CarPlay into it. And next thing you know, 6 months later, after battling, I don't need it. I could just put my phone up and I could just keep riding out. But I got that. I ended up going ahead and doing it and getting the Apple CarPlay installed, the deck in my car. And am I happy? Absolutely. It's something that I spent 6 months, as you know. I was thinking about it, researching it, wheeling and dealing with certain stores, and I eventually fired off and I did it. But could I have been in a better financial place? Yes. But did I go off track? Not so much, because I said to myself, if I'm going to do this, I have to do this where it doesn't distract this thing, which is all the other things I'm really trying to accomplish before 2025.
Right.
And that was bothering me, that it's going to spill over into 2025, and I had to get comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So the lack of this little discipline that I had with that piece, I had to find that comfort, because when we buy ourselves something on impulse, we're like, man, I should have never done that, but I wanted it. And that brings me to another point I want to kind of bring up when we answer this question, is the wants and needs. It's there's, how do you control that? Like, how do you define that, and how do you take your time, or how are you quick on your feet to identify that? Is this a want or is this a need?
Yeah.
There's two definitions when it comes to want and need. So, but yeah, that was something that threw me off a little bit, but I'm back on track. Like I said, it's not something that took me off, way too off. So, but yeah, that would be my answer.
Yeah, you said discipline, and that's what came to mind for me. Impulse, I think, is human nature. You could be inspired by something or tempted by something, however you want to look at it. You see something, it was not in the plan, but now it's in your face, and you're like, I'm interested in that, or what's up with that? And so being able to acknowledge that and spot that, but then come back to your place of discipline. And this goes back to being grounded, right? When you know the baseline that you've established for yourself, the purpose that you're aligned with, the things that you're going after, in the face of this, impulsive luring, you can say like, okay, I know what my goals are. Is this moving me toward my goals, or will this actually set me back? And in some instances, again, I think it's okay for us to, especially when we have this awareness, we're not just like floating through life and not even conscious of what's happening.
Yeah.
But I'm aware that I'm being tempted to do something that was not in my original plan, and like, I'm gonna go ahead and take the L. I'm gonna do it.
Right.
This was not in my budget. I'm gonna do it for the reasons that I can justify later. But I can look myself in the mirror and say, this wasn't in the plan, but this thing jumped out, and I said I was gonna take action on it. Boom, I did it. I'm gonna bite that bullet.
Yeah.
Right.
But the fact that you're aware, I think is a start. And so, and I think about this too, like with certain fitness goals, and I'm like, okay, after 8 p.m., I'm not eating anything. And it's 9 o'clock, and I'm just standing in the kitchen, dipping some chips and some guacamole.
Yeah.
And it's relatively light, but it's like, I said that I wasn't going to eat after 8 o'clock, but here I am, And the next day, you get up and you swing at it again.
Right.
So I think that's also a part of it, is giving yourself grace and realizing that you may not necessarily stay on track all the time, but to have enough self-awareness to be able to peep very clearly when you find yourself deviating, and at least get to a point where you're making a conscious decision to deviate versus, oh, it just took over and I had nothing to do with it. Somebody just swiped my card for me. Like, no, you did that.
Right.
Own it. Own it.
Own it.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing, is owning it. And when it comes to impulse buys or whatever the case may be, it's like, it's not like how you can do it and claim it with the bank account. Like, oh, somebody stole my card. These are fraudulent charges.
Exactly.
You are the person. You are the person that made those charges. I think it brings me back to something else, like, having all your goals in line when it comes to eating healthier, creating a budget for yourself, the physical discipline it takes to go to the gym and to have that regimen in the gym, whatever the case. It's all a matter of spiritual alignment, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And then when your spirit is aligned, then some of these other things come a little bit more naturally because you're in the right frame of mind. Like, I feel like when I'm spiritually aligned, I make better decisions because the voice of my ego is very low and my spirit man is very high. And so my spirit man is literally like air traffic control in my head, guiding me throughout my day. Hey, do this, work out, don't eat that, drink some water, do this, do that. What do you think it takes for you to get into a place of spiritual alignment? And what does spiritual alignment look like for you guys?
Discipline, as we just spoke about, I think could be a jumping off point. When it comes to spiritual alignment, I think there's a beautiful separation and oneness between the spirit realm and the physical realm.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're one because we are spirit that operates within a physical body, but there are two different government structures.
Yeah.
What governs the physical realm is not the same thing that governs the spiritual realm. And so while I am a spirit that lives in the physical body, my physical body has desires and needs. My spirit man has desires and needs. And the one that I allow to govern is the one that can actually get the results, right? And so although in the physical realm, one would think that you just kind of go with the flow of what you're feeling physically, there is a way to tap into the spiritual government, to invest in the spiritual government to the point where you're able to get spiritually inspired results within the physical realm.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the goals, because there are certain there are powers that exist in the spirit realm that don't exist in the physical realm.
Yeah.
And so being able to tap into that spiritual government and bring that into manifestation in the physical, I think is a very powerful thing. And we've seen it. I mean, you see somebody fasting for many days.
Yeah.
That's not physically easy to do. But if one can tap into meditation and prayer and whatever their spiritual process is, and understand, like, I'm not going to allow myself during this time of physical hardship to be taken out by all of these desires. I'm going to actually let the spiritual government drive that, because the spirit doesn't need to eat a sandwich,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't have a desire for a burger,
Nah.
right?
Right.
But the body may be like, yo, I'm hungry. But the spirit can say, I understand you're hungry, but you're not the boss right now.
Wow.
You know, you're not the boss. And if one can tap into that, that can have so many positive, outcomes in one's life, because they literally are tapping into another power, a higher power than just what's governed in the physical realm.
For me, is identifying the higher self. And when you get to a point where it's like, all right, I'm operating at my highest potential in the physical, physical, spiritual realm. What happens is when you start to feel, you feel it. You feel when it's just like, I'm going low. I'm eating certain things. I'm not working out. I'm not where I need to be. Like, why do I feel dark?
Yeah, my vibration.
My
is low.
vibration is low. Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it's like, it's identifying it.
Yeah.
And then once you identify it, it's about how do you get right back up and finding that energy to get back up, because that's the thing. Sometimes, we talk about this all the time, where it's like, you don't want to keep finding yourself, you could talk the talk, you can talk it around people. You're like, yeah. But behind closed doors, you're always low. You're always eating wrong. You're always complaining. You're always in a dark place. It's just like, and then it's just like, when people that really know you, they know that you're all the way down here, but in public, you're like, man, I'm here. And it's just like, nah, you're not really up here.
Right.
I know you're not up there,
Yeah.
Because, and that's where you'll be able to, not even being that person, you'll identify. You don't even really have to know that person that well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You could feel it. You could feel like, they're operating low, and I gotta be careful. Can you help them? Maybe. But if they're here and they're saying the things that it's just like, okay, you're saying the right things. You're giving me that talk. But then there's something, I don't know, there's just something that's just not connecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's for me, it's like the identifying it.
Yeah.
And just not allowing yourself to keep going underwater for too long. It's going to happen. And once you start feeling like, all right, man, I'm losing my breath. I'm claustrophobic. I'm dark. I'm not here. What's going on with me? My routine is off. And you need to find a way to get back up.
Yeah. It's a fight.
Yeah.
It's
It's a
literally a
battle. It's
fight.
not easy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think many people, I feel like they're just like, man, I'm not going that way. That's too much. All right, why I gotta keep? It's this day. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. When it's just like, when you're supposed, like, there's that little voice.
Yeah.
We talk about that little voice, right?
Yeah.
That little voice that's like, man, get up and go to the gym.
Yeah.
Get up. You said you was gonna do this today. You were supposed to do this today. Like, go and get these things done.
Right.
In order for you to stay here. And what happens is you ignoring that little voice.
The crazy thing about it too, which I don't know that I've always tapped into, but I've been learning to tap into it more later, is sometimes it's truly not even about you. Like, we should want to be at our best selves, not just for us, but for those who we are doing life with. Like, if you have young children, you should want those young children to see you in your best health.
Right.
You are an example for them. And so when you wake up and go to the gym, it's like, yo, my children get to see a father who is leading by example of what it means to promote a healthy lifestyle, that you're the example that they're watching.
Right.
So even if you took yourself completely out of the equation, whatever work you do, you think about, like, man, I will be of better service to those who I do this work for, to my clients, to my whatever, if I was at my best, if my vibration was high, if I was,
Right.
A school teacher, and I came in here every day with the energy that is unmatched, these young people will go on to do incredible things in life because this was the being that was pouring into them every day.
Right.
Versus this low vibrating
Right.
person who's like just barely making it, not taking care of themselves. How are you going to inspire the next generation to go do anything? Right. But so, and we figure out how to mask it, and we know the right things to say, and we look the part to a certain degree, but people can feel energy, and even just a passerby on the street. When you're walking down the street and you say, hey, good morning, ma'am, or whatever it is, you literally are speaking life into somebody else. That is, if you have life in you.
Yeah.
But if it's trash,
Yeah.
like you haven't been pouring anything into yourself, you have very little to give others. And so I think a desire to have impact in the world and the communities that we move in and out of is another inspiration. So it's like laying in the bed in the morning, it's like I want to get up, not just for me, but for everybody that I might encounter today. They need the best version of me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you say you guys hit a couple of great points. One of the things was that, you talk about the people around you and figuring I can't fail because if I fail, there's a lot of people or a lot of things that are dependent on me. I don't know if you remember the recession a little while ago. They bailed out the banks.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said the banks were too big to fail. They were too big to fail. So in other words, we need to give them a stimulus package because they're too big to fail. And that always stuck with me. Sometimes, when my spirit man speaks to me, he says like, hey, you're too big to fail.
Let's go.
And we need a spiritual stimulus package.
That's good.
And so when we give that spiritual stimulus package, what are the things that are in there? Rest. You got to read. You know what I'm saying? You got to read your scripture. You got to read your books. You got to get some rest. You got to take some time in silence and meditate.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get to the gym. You got to hit the steam room, sauna. There are certain things in the spiritual stimulus package that you're going to need because you are indeed too big to fail.
That's good.
And so when we give you that spiritual stimulus package, this is to get you back on your feet. And one of the prayers that I always prayed, even when I was in like the darkest place or the hardest and toughest of places, I never prayed for God to take it away. That's never what I prayed for. I always prayed for God to make me strong enough, to make me clear enough, and to make me focus enough to handle whatever comes my way.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a sense of, for those of us who are ambitious, there's this sense of we have a responsibility to carry life forward in a certain way.
Yeah.
We have a responsibility to be able to do the heavy lifting on the day in and the day out. And if you're anything like me, you know that, hey, I don't want it to be taken away. I want to be able to be strong enough to conquer this.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to be strong enough to get to the next phase of my life. So when I look at 2025 and being grounded in 2025, I want to be fully equipped for everything that might come my way, because this is what always happens, right? The new year happens, all the feel goods rush in.
Mm-hmm.
We're happy about the new year, and then what happens? Sometimes around February, March, reality starts setting in. Mm-hmm. And we start getting hammered with the new year. The new year is not a new year anymore. If you say Happy New Year, you look like a weirdo, right? And then so all the feel goods of the new year is over. The life is hitting you full speed ahead, and you're like, oh shoot, how am I gonna make it through this year? You know what I'm saying? And so what I say is, in the feel good moments, and what I say is, starting off with the new year, already have our mindset on what is it gonna take to get us over that hump.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's where like a majority of these first questions come from. Like, what does it take for you personally to get you to a place where you're motivated to go past that hump? You're motivated to keep going. You're motivated to say, I'm pushing myself just as hard as I did when I was excited.
Yeah.
Or I'm pushing myself just as hard as I did when I received something. Or I was on a flow and I was on a roll. And even if I'm not on a roll now, what are some of the ways that we can do contrary action to get ourselves back into momentum, right? Because there was this saying that the devil, he'll let you have joy. The devil's not really out for your joy. What the devil's out for is your momentum. Because if he can get you to stay still, then he's accomplished his work. He got you frozen, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can find a way to keep momentum in times where things are tough and difficult, and you feel like you can't move anymore, and you find a way to get momentum to go forward, then you've accomplished something big, right?
Yeah.
I would say, you said, how do we get over that hump? I would say the biggest thing for me, we talked about this yesterday, was the work you're doing behind the scenes. You know, the work you're doing behind the scenes. Like, for example, we've identified this when something good happens. Man, you got 2 or 3 gigs going. Man, I had like a real powerful week in the barbershop. You know, like you had dropped 2 albums, you know, like a combination album. You're in Chicago performing. There is this thing that follows. And there's this thing that follows where it's just like, all right, man, you're going up, you're moving up, but it's about the work that you're doing, you know, spiritually. Mm-hmm. That thing that follows, that's always trying to take you down.
Yeah.
That you have to do the work in the background so that it doesn't catch up. So that way, while you're moving forward and you're accomplishing goals and hitting goals, and the thing that's following you, we all know what it is, that's trying to take you down. It's all that work that you're doing spiritually that's going to make it feel like it needs to give up and it can't catch up. So that you can keep building good, and then now you're getting over hump. Because it's not just one hump. Yeah. It's multiple humps. Every time you achieve something good, it's a hump that you just got over. But then you got to go back down. We talked about the roller coaster, mm-hmm. right? You're going over that hump, you get over that hump, and then at the top, at the peak, there's all these emotions, all this like, man, I'm excited, I did it, I got it, woo! But don't forget, you got to go back down to get back up. So it's about the work that you're doing in the background that's going to get you back up. And that thing that's following you is going to be like, man, I thought we had him at the bottom. Yeah. And he's back up. So that's the thing. And, you know, we see it a lot with celebrities and people that's like, where are they? And they drop it out. No, okay, they're still around, I guess. You know, they're not allowing that thing to catch up. They keep going and keep going. So, but yeah, I would say, to answer the question, it's definitely about what you're doing in the background. So.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to momentum, the illusion is that you have to continue at the exact same pace for it to be considered momentum. And I don't agree with that. I think even if the pace changes and this next season calls for less output, more time spent in being introspective, that's still momentum. As long as you're doing what you should be doing, right? Because there is a time where you're front and center, you're presenting work that's been done. There are times where you're experiencing life in a way that gives you new inspiration for what you're going to create next time. And all of that, I think, should be counted when we're looking at the whole picture of what it means to maintain momentum. And if you find yourself in a slump or you feel like I'm not moving at all, sometimes it's not a big step that you need to take. It's really a small step. Yeah. It could be the smallest step that is necessary to just kind of get you back into gear. And a lot of times we don't give enough credit to that. One of the things that I think knocks us down so far is when we have these big high moments. Like, man, I just had a big show and everybody was there and the music was great and the this and the that and all of these accolades. And then you look at the clock and it's like, this is the end of the set. And this event is about to be over. Right. And I'm going to get off the stage and I'm going to hug people. We're going to take photos and we're going to celebrate. And for the next couple of days, people will be tagging me in posts and it's going to be still like this lingering of that high. But then the following week comes and everybody's on to the next thing. Right. And so like what happened with all of those emotions? And now I'm kind of back into this place. And so the temptation is, let me recreate that. And it's like, you don't have to recreate that. Right. You need to turn your attention to what is right now. Yeah. And I think, we get so addicted to certain moments that we think that we're just supposed to keep, and you're not doing it if you don't keep repeating those moments. And it's like, no, that was that moment. Yeah. So what are you doing right now? And even if what you're doing right now is meeting with your nephew about his math homework, that's the new stage, the new big stage. Right. can you execute that with that good energy that you've been cultivating? You know, and perhaps being obedient to that moment is more powerful than merely recreating something else. It's about being present and aware and aligned with what's happening right now.
Yeah.